Hey, sports fans, we're back, and today we're here to take a look at the top Notre Dame football players of all time. Notre Dame, with all of its history, has produced some of the greatest college athletes ever. But who are the greatest to ever strap on those golden domes? Stay tuned and let's find out. But first, if you're not already subscribed to this channel, do me a favor, click that subscribe button so you can stay up to date on this channel. All done? All right, on to our video. The best way to gauge how good an offensive lineman is by asking the people they're challenged with stopping. When it comes to Zach Martin, that list of defensive linemen that have sung his praises is long enough to secure his place in the list as one of Notre Dame's all-time greats. Now, Martin might be a nice guy in between whistles, but as soon as it's time to bend down and protect his quarterback, he's as nasty as just about any lineman to ever play the college game. After redshirting his first season, Martin started all 13 games during the 2010 season for the Fighting Irish at left tackle and showcased a tenacity to play up front and not only hold his own, but also overwhelm defensive players. The following year, Martin was again named the Irish's starter at left tackle, and he appeared in all 13 games. But this season, the unit was considered elite, and that was a big thanks to Martin and his ability to protect his quarterback from some of the nation's best pass rushers on the left side. Now, Martin was also an excellent run blocker, and he and his unit helped their running backs average an amazing 4.8 yards per carry, which was the best by a Notre Dame team in almost 20 years. Martin finished his career off strong and dominated his left tackle position while also showing versatility, manning different positions along the offensive line. He was named one of the 4 captains for the Irish and helped lead his side to a perfect 12-0 regular season record and a date in the national title game with Alabama. The Irish may have lost, but their appearance in the title game was a testament to a special unit with exceptional players like Zach Martin that put the team in place to fight for a national title game that nobody had expected them to even play in when the year had started. In Martin's final year, he again started all 13 games and was again named team captain. The Fighting Irish allowed only 8 sacks this season, which was second most in the FBS, with Martin being the standout on offensive line. Martin was named MVP of the Pinstripe Bowl, becoming the first offensive lineman since 1959 to receive that honor in a bowl game. Our next entry, Golden Tate, showed some flashes during his freshman season, but exploded during his sophomore and junior seasons, all the way to being the nation's top receiver. Golden Tate may have only stood at 5'10" and weighed just under 200 pounds, but his impact on the field was massive. And once Tate was named a starter, he played like a giant. Tate was one of the shiftiest players to ever touch a college football field, able to change direction on a dime and leave defenders confused while also being able to sky over taller defensive backs. Tate was a big play waiting to happen in what seemed like every time Tate touched the ball. In his second year after Tate was given an extended role, he had 1,080 yards receiving, averaging a redonkulous 18.6 yards per catch, and capped off the season as being named MVP of the Hawaii Bowl. Following year 2, there were many around college football saying that Golden Tate and his golden touch at wide receiver could be one of the best Golden Domer receivers to ever enter South Bend. Now, Tate wouldn't disappoint in his final year, and he took his game to an even higher level that validated all the hype he'd been getting prior to the 2009 season. From the word go, Tate was a reception machine, taking short throws for long gains while also getting behind defenses and be able to break the top off of defenses. Now, Tate had been a field stretcher in his previous season, but now he was Notre Dame's do-it-all guy. Needed a 3 tough yards? Throw it to Tate. You need a 3rd and long? Throw it to Tate. As the nation caught on and rolled more coverage his way, it did nothing to slow Tate, who rattled off 9 consecutive games with at least 100 yards. In his biggest game against Washington and his final game of the season against Indiana, Tate went for over 200 yards, and at the end of the season, Tate was honored with the Fred Biletnikoff Award as the nation's best receiver. And although Notre Dame faithful wanted Tate back for one more year, he decided to go pro. Had he stayed in college, there is little doubt that he would have put most of Notre Dame's wide receiver records out of reach. Tim Brown's rise to Notre Dame football lore started with his early praise for being an athlete who was a perfect student. While Brown was very athletic, he was also very cerebral. Show him once, he'd know how to do it. Tell him where he needed to work, he'd spend countless hours perfecting that area of his game and make it his strength. During his freshman year, Brown set the rookie receiving record and earned the trust of his coaches and staff. The young receiver with a veteran's presence role evolved, and the wide receiver also served as one of the team's return specialists, averaging an impressive 24 yards per kick return. Although his numbers didn't skyrocket in his sophomore year, his efficiency improved, making him a weapon that performed whenever called upon. During his junior year, he vaulted himself into a Heisman candidate as he upped his yardage totals more than his previous 2 years combined and improved as a kick returner. The student of the game had been soaking up all the lessons his coaches and teammates had been putting in front of him and became a master. By the time he was a junior, Tim Brown was in a category all by himself as an athlete and taking on more of a leadership role. When Notre Dame faced off against USC in the final game of the season, Brown proved unstoppable in a classic come-from-behind upset victory over the Trojans. In Brown's final season, he was finally unleashed. Used as a wideout, running back, and kick returner, the receiver showed he was the nation's best and a weapon that Notre Dame could successfully deploy to dominate other teams and leave them puzzled about how to stop number 81. Brown regularly received double coverage and routinely beat it, forcing coaches to triple cover Brown and shift the entire defense's attention to him. The national attention was on him too, as Brown became Notre Dame's all-time leading receiver and won Notre Dame's 7th Heisman Trophy. Even if you have never watched Joe Montana play during his college days, you probably think that his name has always been synonymous with quarterback greatness. But while Joe may have been a coveted athlete when he first arrived on campus at Notre Dame in 1974, he still had to earn his way just like everyone else. Back in those days, freshmen weren't allowed to play with the varsity team, so although Joe was a top prospect, he wasn't at the top of the coaching staff's priority. During the 1975 spring practices and with a new coaching regime in place, Montana's new coach famously told his wife after watching Montana practice that, "I'm going to start Joe Montana in the final spring game." When his wife asked, "Who's Joe Montana?" the coach replied, "The guy who's going to feed this family for the next few years." Now, even though the coach saw the talent in spring practices, he was still cautious with Joe and didn't want to rush him into things. In the games Joe did play, though, the college world got its first taste of that Montana magic and his comeback ways. Montana was brought on late in a game against North Carolina, down 14-6 with just over 5 minutes left, and although he spent just a minute and a half on the field, he passed for 129 yards and won 21-14. In another game that Montana entered late, they were down 30-10 in the fourth quarter against Air Force, and Notre Dame won 31-30. At the time, Notre Dame's athletic director called it the best comeback he had ever seen. The two comebacks were the beginning of many comebacks for Montana, and enough to give the sports world a glimpse at the ice in Montana's veins. The young QB would need more than ice in his veins to cope with the following year, which Montana missed due to a shoulder injury. Montana wouldn't appear in a game until the third game of 1977, where he was again brought in with Notre Dame trailing by a touchdown late. And what did Montana do? Bring Notre Dame back in stunning fashion, but this time he'd keep the starting job and lead Notre Dame to 9 straight victories, including a national title victory. Montana was finally on the mountaintop and the undisputed signal caller in South Bend. The following season, Montana would return and lead Notre Dame to a bowl game where he saved his most legendary heroics for last. After coming in and out of a game due to hypothermia and icy temperatures, Montana returned to a game in the third quarter down by 22 to beat Houston in the Cotton Bowl, which is now known as the Chicken Soup Bowl. The rain, wind, snow, or sunshine, Montana was magnificent, and NFL teams were salivating for a chance to get the kid who wasn't lighting up the stat sheets, but checking all the boxes in the win column. Last but certainly not least, in the top of our countdown is a quarterback by the name of Johnny Lujack, who played almost 80 years ago, yet his heroics still reign as the most accomplished Fighting Irish football player of all time. And while it's impossible to compare eras, it's also impossible to overlook accomplishments. When you win a Heisman and a 2-time All-American and 3 national championships, who's going to argue with your name being at the top of an all-time great list? In Lujak's day, he was regarded as one of the great T-formation quarterbacks in all of college football history. He was also a phenomenal athlete. In a single game, he once threw for 2 scores, ran for another, and intercepted a pass. Versatility, anyone? Lujak also played halfback for the Fighting Irish and also served as punter. If his versatility wasn't enough, the dude also just knew how to win. He led the Irish to back-to-back undefeated seasons and even made a crucial game-saving tackle to preserve one of the perfect seasons. If Lujak played today, there is no telling what his game would look like, but being as dominant as he was in his day means that he was hands down the most dominant and most storied football player to ever attend South Bend. You may have only learned his name during this video, but he is the name that will forever be etched into Notre Dame's Mount Rushmore. All right, sports fans, that's it for our time on Notre Dame's best football players of all time. Let us know what you think of this list by dropping a comment down below. And as always, if you aren't already subscribed to this channel, do me a favor, click that subscribe button and that bell while you're at it to get more videos just like this as soon as they drop. Until next time, sports fans.